Good afternoon, everyone. We're here with Ashley Woods, one of our board members for VetsBoats. And Ashley is a marketer, artist, all kinds of great things that has contributed so much to our organization to help us get our branding out there. But in addition to all of her talents in that area, she also has a passion for helping out veterans through recreational therapy, which she's had some experience. So, Ashley, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my background, like you said, is in global branding. That's where I built my career with big high-tech companies, Cisco Systems, Sun Microsystems. I myself became disabled from my career, which then had me reinvent myself. And I started my tack store, which is my equestrian retail. And everyone that knew me said, could you just help me with my marketing? So then the branding, small business branding company was formed. Here at the horse park where I have my store, I'm also the manager of the actual facility. And right on site, we have what's called Giant Steps Therapeutic, who they are an organization. They're very well known for having horse communication help, among other people, veterans and children and anyone else who has abilities that are not completely developed. I actually met Terry through the Wounded Veterans Polo benefit. And so I had lent my time to that as well.
I remember that event. I was really hoping I could make it out to that. And I remember seeing the pictures. It looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great day for a lot of people, and it really gets people listening and hearing the cause.
Having to kind of reinvent yourself through your own injury, it definitely is something that helps develop our outreach to figure out how do we get a hold of folks that need to do it. However much you're comfortable telling us about that process of having to get through those injuries and reinvent yourself, what was that like? And then how does that help you, look at these veterans that we're trying to help and figure out how to really get the message out about what we can do for them?
It's really great because I didn't have a guide when I had all of my stuff happen. I started out being very ill in my early 30s, physical issues with fibromyalgia and a lot of other sidetrack stuff, but I continued my career. And then I developed lupus of the brain, which is extremely unusual. And that is actually how I became disabled, because it attacked my eyes, it attacked my brain. It's also neurological. And so, like you said, I had to reinvent myself. And I kind of said, well, I don't know how to do anything else. And so I didn't have someone help me. And as I meandered and fought and was put aside and told no, and it made it so much harder. And so one of the things I really like to do is help people, be it physical ailment like me or recovering from any kind of traumatic injury, mental, physical, emotional, otherwise, is to help them find the way. And there's a lot of barriers and there's a lot of obstacles, and there's some ways to get around them. And when I was first married at the time too, funny enough, and my husband's very good friend came to live with us as he was at the end of his life with Agent Orange prostate cancer from being in Vietnam. And he was 19 years old when he was blown off the battlefield, and never had the care, never had the resources, was never given his VA benefits. And so we tried to do it for him at the end of his life. And we were just fortunate enough to give him a softer place to land at the end.
Wow, that's powerful. And unfortunately, I hear similar stories to that way too often, of folks that have just been spent through their service and not getting what they need when they need it.
It's criminal.
It is. It really is. And, when you look at things like that, the horrific suicide numbers among veterans isn't a surprise. It's a shock, but the shock isn't really a surprise when you look at what they've gone through and the lack of support there for them. Through your equestrian work, through recreational therapy, and then through VetsBoats, tell me about what you've seen some of that recreational therapy do for these folks.
It's funny because it's with the horses as well as with vets boats. Nature is what it's really about. And it's so great to see people come alive when they have so many barriers up and it's so scary for them and it's so hard. And then something about the being in nature and the horses are natural. Horses don't judge. And the horses that are there are very, very special. I've done some of the work as far as, getting the horses, and they are on a 3-month probation and they learn to be that therapist and things. The horses don't judge. And being on a sail with vets boats, the water doesn't judge. And there's something very alive and interactive just between the horse and the human, or the ocean and the human. And then the wooden boat is the same way. Wooden boats are alive and they have a soul and they have a reinvention of themselves. And that's really where VetsBoats does that kind of reinvention metaphor and shows how you can take something that had a purpose, oftentimes in battle with some of the boats that they've done. And then they're repurposed and they're rebuilt and they're re-glorified.
Yeah, there is some, and I do a lot of that myself with some of these old sailboats that I do restoration work on. They're thrown away. People don't want them anymore. They're abandoned and they're just rotting. And there is something really neat about bringing these things back. And it kind of occurred to me, I'm curious if your perspective might be similar, is especially when we're looking at these, our organization started out as wooden boats for veterans because we wanted to focus on wooden boats for sailing, which we still do. That hasn't gone away, but they are a very organic thing. And after a while, they can be very tired, very spent, and they need some help. And at the same time, the vets need the same thing. So it was almost like these vets and these old boats needed each other. The boat needed not only the physical rotted boards to be replaced, they needed to be needed again. They needed to be put into use again. They needed to be appreciated again, which is exactly what the veterans need. And they needed to get some hands-on work with, getting out of their own head and applying something outward toward them, towards the physical object of the boat, and then to have that camaraderie with the people that they were working with, especially on our boat Clover, which we're putting back together. We found that to be so. And does that kind of resonate with you, that these things kind of all need each other to help?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we came up with the actual brand strategy, when we bring it down to just a word, we always say, Volvo equals safety, you try to bring it down to something as simple as you can. And with VetsBoats, what we came down to is camaraderie healing. I can tell, all the stories, and I was fortunate enough to interview a lot of people through the branding exercise, but I will never know what it's like truly to be one of them. And only another one of them can truly heal them. And when you see them interact together, and one of the things we really like to do is see we look at it as a cycle, where we talked about going from isolation and loneliness through participation in community to purpose and power. And then it repeats when they become the leader for someone else and bring someone else along and say, hey, I've been there. Let me show you. And I think that's really the most powerful thing.
Yeah, I was talking about that very thing with the subject of our previous interview about going outward. And it's very easy for all of these things to begin to dwell in your own mind, and you focus on them. When you push outward and say, approach someone and say, hey, you as a veteran could help another veteran by being there. It focuses your attention out to someone else who's having a rough time. And strangely enough, that can be very therapeutic. It allows you to heal because you're not focused on you, you're focused on someone else. And these guys and their camaraderie and the fellowship that they deeply miss in the military, whether they were in combat or not, is lacking in their lives. And I've certainly seen that happen with the excursions that we've done. Tell me a little bit about when Terry approached you and told you what we were doing, what was kind of the hook for you that said, oh, this is something I might like to get involved in?
Well, it's funny. Like I said, I met Terry because of the polo event. And the thing that I tell people when I started doing that, and then, all you have to do to say to someone is, there is no better cause. Like, what are you doing? Come on, let's go.
Right. Right.
And so, the thing about VetsBoats that is so wonderful is Terry. He is a magical human being, and you certainly can't say no to Terry. And his vision and his tireless dedication to this it's just incredible. And he's done such an incredible job doing it that he makes you want to do it. So it was pretty easy for me to come along and say, yeah, we're going to work on this. And for me, on the branding and marketing side, it's something that most people, you don't start a business, you start a business for your core competency, and you start a charity for the work that you're going to do. You don't do it to have this skill that I have. So to bring it to that is really great. And then they get to enjoy the same rigor and discipline and, highbrow thinking that a big corporation has, and apply it. And once you have that done, a lot of the stuff then falls into place. It helped the operating scheme. It helped kind of our process of how we think of the workflows, and it all trickles down.
I agree. And I've said to Terry several times, and I keep saying it to him, hey, Terry, I can't believe you let me do this. It is, it's fun, but it's also rewarding in that you think, oh, you know what? I could contribute something to this, and it's a good project. There's no shortage of good projects out there, but I think this one is able to appeal to a lot of people to contribute to, because it's very hands-on. It's very real. The horrific numbers we see of veterans that are suffering, even, aside from the suicides, if you can put that aside for a minute, I can, but if you can, just the depression, the substance abuse, the failed relationships and marriages, and people are having a really rough time. And it's not just those who are dealing with combat right now, or have been in combat. It's just something's changed. I don't know that we've put our finger on it exactly to figure out what it is. But either way, there's hurting people out there. Once you got involved with it and started seeing what we were doing, have you been out in any of the excursions with the vets?
Yeah, I went out on a sail when we were working on this, and it's funny. That's what I think is really powerful, is when you do finally see these people, because it sounds like a little funny, like, oh, well, they're never going to be able to have their own sailboat. Like, what are you doing? But when you see them enjoy it, and one of the things I think is really different about VetsBoats versus some of the other types of projects, they also include the families. So on the sail I was on, there was a father and son. There was a married couple. And I think that is really important. And that perspective with VetsBoats is always, it's not just the person. It's everyone around is going through this as well. Not the same, but they're going through it.
Right.
And they might be, experiencing loss and isolation because the person that came home isn't the same.
That's very
and
true.
They don't know how to help.
Yeah, they don't. Trying to fit into society again is tough, because you've got people who don't understand it. And I think that's one of the things I've liked about what you've done with some of the marketing and our strategies, is that you're not just appealing to people that might be able to help the organization. It's given us a foothold in trying to appeal to the veterans who need it themselves, but it's also to the people who love and care about them. Because interestingly enough, we're finding, at least I'm finding, it's usually not the veterans who are getting to the point where they're hitting a wall and reaching out for help. It's usually someone else who says, my spouse, my dad, my friend is having a rough time. They're the ones we did some marketing research on this, and I think maybe I sent you some of that data, is we were finding that it wasn't the vets searching for these help things and what kind of sites they were looking for. resources were being looked for by their family and friends to say, I've got somebody I think's in trouble. Where do I find them help? Maybe those are the people we need to get to first. And what's your thinking on that? How do we do that?
Yeah, and that's the whole reason why when we talked about the strategy of first from going from isolation and loneliness, we were saying that, someone that's in that hole is not going to be like, hey, I want to go on a sail.
Right.
And that was one of the things that we really saw over and over is, and again, also too, the reason why when someone goes from isolation and loneliness to and progresses through the and gets to the purpose at the end and then grabs someone else, that person is in the hole and they got to get out. And so someone has to help them. They're not going to self-start on their own healing.
Right.
So very much so, the targeting is
they don't know where to start.
Who do you love?
They really don't know where to start.
No.
And that's got to be a lonely place in and of itself.
Yeah.
I've had some veterans that have gone out with me on the local sailing excursions that I've done up here at our lake. And, it is kind of fun to watch the transformation. Some of these people have never been out sailing. Mm-hmm. Most of them haven't. Occasionally you'll get people who are, I was out on the Navy, but I was out on a big ship and this is a whole different ballgame. I mean, it's very intimate.
Yeah.
You're sitting on a little boat and you're 2 feet above the water and you can hear the water and, a little turn on the tiller will turn the boat and you can feel it moving like we were talking about with wooden boats. These are very organic things that you're intimately connected with. And if you give them a chance to, hey, when you take a turn at the rudder. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. You watch them, but to have that feeling of, because you can feel the water moving over the rudder, then through the tiller and into your hands. And it's a whole different, it's almost like a hypnosis. They forget that they don't have to remember everything that's happening to them at the moment. It's an escape that they don't even realize they're doing while they're doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that really appeals to me about recreational therapy, especially through sailing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that we did for just an actual tactical approach when we were rebranding VetsBoats was to take advantage of every veteran-oriented holiday. That's when we can get the most interest, the most donations. It's not just the 4th of July, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day. There's all kinds of them. And, that gives us kind of stakes in the ground along the way to say, let's do something around this. Let's do something around that. I mean, you don't have to make up something because they're out there.
No, there's plenty of that.
Yeah. If you think about even people that just want to donate money or time, they want to make sure they're going to a program that really makes a difference. And so hearing it from the people that we've actually helped their life in some way, that's the proof. And I think that that's got to be the basis for any kind of program, no matter who we're targeting. Are we targeting investors? Are we targeting potential partners? Are we targeting participants? They want to know it works too.
I suppose one of the best testimonies we might have are the people that want to be part of this, that are already doing something similar. Like I said, we're partnering with other organizations that are realizing the therapeutic value of taking these vets for a sail. Not, I'm not saying being out on the water isn't enough, but to be out on a sailboat is really a unique experience for some of these folks. They've never been out and they never had anything quite like it. It's kind of funny because when I take people out, most of these people, at least around here, have been on a motorboat. They'll go up to the lake and they get there and they throttle it up and you have to scream at each other because the engine's so loud. And it never fails. I get the boat out, I get the sails up and I cut the engine and everyone says the same thing. It's so quiet.
Yes.
And we're moving without an engine, and it's just, and then they all just go, oh, they just all, I almost wish I had a camera to be able to photograph, just watch this. Their shoulders drop and they're like, this is what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always like to, the thing that one of the things I also like, is the quiet. And then I like the shh.
Yep.
Shh. Shh. Against the bow. And there's something very soothing about that.
Yep. And that very gentle motion, you get out on a fast boat, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with motorboats, but you glide along with the waves a little bit, and there's this gentle rocking motion. I've almost had people ready to fall asleep because it's just rocking them to sleep.
Yeah.
Which is great. Great. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again. And
ditto.
And
more to come, and on we go.
What's that?
I said, and more to come, and on we go.
Absolutely. Looking forward to getting out there and going on a sail with you here real soon.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Take care. Have a good evening.
Okay. Bye-bye.